wanted to thank everybody for joining. So I'm Brad Parks. So I manage product and go to market for Morpheus. I've been here about 5 years after spending 10 years at HPE. So I'm super excited to be back, back in the saddle here with HPE with longtime friend Joe Vidal from the HPE GreenLake North America team. Joe, why don't you give the folks an intro?
Absolutely, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I've known Brad for pretty much your entire HP career and Morpheus career.
Don't say how long that is.
Yeah, no, we won't do that. Yeah, I've been selling HP and compact systems either within compact HPE directly or the channel community now for coming up on 33 years. So we've seen a lot of change, and the nice thing is it's really exciting, Brad, because what's happening right now in the hybrid cloud space is making it easier than ever. I think for IT administrators all the way up to CIOs and CFOs to get a rein around or pull reins in on all of their IT estate, right? And automate it all and finally be able to respond to the business units in the way that IT's always wanted to, which is instantaneously, right?
We are close to the dream. One might say we are in the red zone. We can get to the end zone, but
we've been talking about software-defined data center for so many years, and we're finally there. Yeah, we call it hybrid cloud.
That is perfect. Well, thank you very much for that. We're gonna jump in a little bit of housekeeping before for Joe and I, take it away into some content. So we do have everyone on mute. Like I said, a couple hundred folks dialing in for this one today, or at least on the registration. So if you have any questions, use the Q&A function. Joe's going to be monitoring that. He'll be the voice of the audience here. Want to get your questions answered. We're going to go through just a handful of slides. I'm a former engineer. Joe's still out there every day talking with customers. We want to keep this pretty light on slideware, make it interactive, have a little discussion, and then we're going to do an actual platform demo. The great thing about software is it shows much better than it tells, and we want to show you that it's real, because everything works on PowerPoint, but the real thing is when you get live and without a net. So we're going to do a little of that as well. Lastly, we did promote this as a Clouds in the Endzone event, and we are going to give away a couple of football tickets. So those of you who hang on till the end, we will be taking the full list of names, running that through the magical randomizer, and we'll be sending the winner an email. If you're from a federal agency or someone else who can't accept such things, just let us know, and we'll go to the next in the list. I think that is all of the housekeeping I have, and with that, we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about the state of the world, because as Joe said, it has changed a lot in the 20, 30 years he and I have been in this IT business. But I've seen more change in the last kind of 18 months than I did the preceding 18 years as it relates to maturity of customers like yourselves tackling that last mile, that red zone to end zone conversion, getting the vision of a software-defined data center. But there are a handful of problems still kind of standing in the way. So I thought I'd lean in on Joe, since he talks to hundreds of customers, probably a month, a week. I don't know what your cadence is, but a lot of customers. So we're going to pull some of that data in.
Yeah, absolutely, Brad. And, the key is that, I talk to, and no, it's probably only more like 5 or 6 customers a week. However, sometimes every now and then when we're doing events like this, when we get an opportunity to actually touch, influence, or at least chat with 200 plus at a time, and that's great. And we do welcome that conversation. And as you can see in the Q&A, we're responding to these things in real time, even if it's just to say, go dogs. But nonetheless, when it comes to IT bottlenecks, I think this slide really sums up a lot of the dynamics that are happening in the marketplace today, Brad, right? There's tremendous amount of security threats, right? We've gone from 165 days on average to detect a bad actor to now 240 days, while 94% of enterprises you're seeing here are concerned about cloud security. But I guarantee you 100% of all CIOs are concerned about security, right? But the bigger one is the IT bottleneck, being able to have a secure environment that allows IT to respond to those business units, as I mentioned. And 75% of those platforms are self-service or developed platforms, while 70% of the data that's created by them never hits the darkness of a data center and sits outside the public cloud. Right. So it's at the edge somewhere where you need to stand up a micro cloud and integrate that and automate that and manage that and deliver those software-defined assets, no matter where they are, right? Not just software-defined data center. And if you do it all correctly, yeah, you're going to get a massive TCO, or sorry, a great a lower total cost of ownership with a massive ROI that's accelerated to nearly starting on day one. And that's really what we're excited about, right? Morpheus allows, or I should say Morpheus Data allows the HPE GreenLake private cloud enterprise platform to have a very well-defined and extensible self-service portal, right? And the ability to provision that infrastructure with the built-in orchestration workflow engine in Morpheus, right from day one without any customized scripting. And that's huge. It's literally our easy button. Thank you, Brad, for kicking that in there. We thank our friends at Staples that allow us to use the easy button. That was easy.
Perfect. Well, that's, now we'll definitely get in and unpack what a portal is and what it means and all that good stuff here in a minute. One of the pieces, if I can jump in, you leaned in on the IT bottleneck front. That is, if I think about the problem that we solve, like why we're all here, I think that last mile of the software-defined data center is the manifestation of a set of bottlenecks, and it's something that we see all the time. I joke that most of the enterprises I talk to have what I call a software-definable data center, right?
Yes.
You can have compute platforms that have APIs. You can have a ServiceNow instance that is programmatic. You can have networking stacks that are programmatic. The challenge that I hear from IT leaders, I had dinner with giant financial here in New York City last night, and the challenge he was having was it still took his team. He literally was telling me he walked a mile in his developer's shoes. He went into the portal that they had developed for their internal product teams, filled out the 100-line item questionnaire around networks and data privacy and compliance. That then went to the approval person who had to then get the network person to do their part. That workflow of cobbling together that cacophony of IT still takes 2 or 3 weeks for internal developers to get the resources that they need. And that's the vision of private cloud, and it's what AWS has done so easy in public cloud. And that's the problem that we're tackling, and we're excited to be partnered with HPE, who has been tackling a lot of the underpinnings with the vision around GreenLake, and that's maybe the next good thing to cover.
It sure is, Brad, and thank God. I know you've seen a lot of the dynamics happening around DevOps, as you mentioned, but realistically, what we've done, what HPE and Morpheus Data have done, is partnered together to bring a platform that's a standardized platform that allows us to have many, many different cloud modules or application stacks on top of, and some within that platform, right? But the base level platform itself has all the security built in. It's built on a zero trust framework from start to finish and all throughout, right? We have the advisory services, managed services, financial services all built in so that, yes, if done properly, if we're able to size it correctly using our tool set, we can deploy an environment in well less than 90 days on your prem or in the colo of your choice. And thanks to Morpheus Data, basically on day one, have a self-service provisioning engine that allows you to start divvying out workloads, right? Not just OSs or VMs. Sure, it can deliver infrastructure as a service or VM as a service or VDI as a service, but it can go all the way to deliver the entire application stack as a service, whether that's database as a service, AI as a service, machine learning as a service, and everything else in between. The nice thing is that we're leveraging that hybrid cloud orchestration layer that you see right there in the middle from Morpheus Data that gives you the provisioning, the integration, and the capability. And it's not just of HPE gear, right? We've been delivering third-party integrated private cloud environments or hybrid cloud environments that leverage other third-party elements not manufactured by HPE, because we realize it's not an all HPE homogeneous world out there, as much as I wish it were. We have to be able to leverage some of your standards, whatever they might be, that may be rigid, and you don't want to fight that battle. That's fine. We don't want you to have to fight that battle, and that's the beauty of Morpheus. So thank you, Brad. I know that when You have the ability to talk about, how we extract these problems, right, and solve these problems. And Morpheus does a great job solving these problems. So I know you want to go a little more in detail on how we do that.
Yeah, for sure. We've been co-engineering solutions with HPE for the last 4 years. I think it's important to know there's a reason we are embedded in an anchor in this vision around HPE GreenLake, and that is because it is all we do. All we do is orchestrate that cacophony of tools and technologies into a self-service private and hybrid cloud environment, and it's a core part of the HP solution. So one of our great go-to-market partners. Very excited to talk next level down about the technology, about some customer examples. Let's make this real for you guys, but to put a pin on what we do within that horizontal bar. We mentioned IT bottlenecks as one of the key problems that you guys are facing in that last mile. When we take a step back and look at what is a cloud, right? The defining characteristics of cloud back when NIST put pen to paper and defined cloud computing, back in 2011, self-service, on-demand provisioning of infrastructure and applications in an elastic manner. That is the defining attribute of a cloud. It is also what makes Morpheus tick. We are all about a self-service experience. And what do I mean, by that? Typically, that example I used earlier, the developer who has to go into a kind of an old-timey portal and fill out 100 different input fields and wait for an approval, and then wait for the network person to do their job and next guy to do their job. The reason it takes so long is there's all these manual handoffs. And if we look at why public cloud grew so asymptotically, it was because it got IT out of the way, right? There was definitely good cost plays around operational expense, being able to pay as you go, but the biggest driving factor was a bunch of development teams doing next-gen projects without having to wait for 2 or 3 weeks to get their resources. What Morpheus does is we enable those same development teams to get instant access to applications, whether they're running on-prem in your GreenLake infrastructure, on-prem in your traditional infrastructure, or in the public cloud in a consistent way. And that is our primary use case, being able to provision application services on demand. It could be an OS or a VM or a multi-tier application stack like Joe mentioned. You can do that through the GUI, through the API, through a Terraform provider, or even through a ServiceNow plugin. So depending on the type of user you are, you get the experience that you want, but you still get to do it without having to wait on IT. One of the second big use cases that we see coming up more and more is the ability to do Kubernetes clusters on demand, right? We see IT ops inheriting a lot of these science projects around Kubernetes that have come in from the wild. They're landing in IT's lap, and they're having to be the facilitator of app modernization for downstream teams. So Morpheus can also help you get clusters on demand. Third, we know everyone's trying to do more things programmatically, do it as code. Unfortunately, there's not enough automation engineers to go around. So one of our big use cases is packaging up that script that's sitting on somebody's laptop or trapped in their Git repository, but making that a catalog-driven push button experience to run that automation. And then lastly, because we've kind of normalized all of the data across private and public clouds, we give you a single place to discover all those resources, visualize them, update your CMDBs, and monitor those services using integration with tools like ServiceNow and others. And here's one of my favorite things. This is why, Joe, take it away.
That's right. This is why we integrate Morpheus into the GreenLake private and hybrid cloud solution, specifically private cloud enterprise. And I see that Marcelo added a comment here in the Q&A section that, it is Morpheus data that gives us the ability to provision bare metal, right? Without customized scripting. And that's the key. There's lots of tools out there, whether you're using Terraform, Ansible, whatever it might be. There's lots of different ways you can leverage these APIs and write your own scripts. But the beauty of it is that because we've integrated Morpheus data into our GreenLake platform, you don't have to do all that coding, right? It's already done for you. And as we're talking about the need for various different perspectives, Brad, on the next slide, we start talking about, between HPE and GreenLake, or sorry, HPE, GreenLake, and Morpheus, we're not forcing you to change the way you do business and to change the way you do approvals or who has to have the approval or the security access, right? We have separate access for the developers for their continuous integration, continuous development, or CI/CD pipelines. The security team gets their own view. The IT ops team get their own view. Finance gets their own view. And the more important thing, HR and all your other business units can have their own customized view as well, so that they're only seeing the resources that they're responsible for. We're not forcing your server admins, for instance, to have to make network decisions, or vice versa, the network team having to divvy out storage and compute resources that they don't either care about or have authorization to do, right? So we literally have the ability to create any number of infinite reference points or viewpoints in console, so that you're divvying up that and having access and visibility only to what you're authorized to do. But we're also giving you visibility to make smart business decisions, like finance, looking to see what resources are available, and either provision or non-provision, and how much they cost per metric. And this isn't just visibility to the HPE assets, right? We're also giving you visibility to your multi-cloud assets, whether that be Amazon, Google, or Azure, looking to see what resources you have available there and how much they're costing you and what's available. So giving it all to you so that you can answer each one of these questions individually, Brad.
Perfect. You set me up well. Yeah, these are the groups that we see inside the enterprise trying to work together, and oftentimes there's a lot of friction, because each domain has their KPIs, what they're trying to solve for, and they're sometimes step on each other's toes. And from a feature stack, if we go kind of next level down, what do we provide to each of these communities? If we think about self-service as the core to the platform. First, for IT ops, platform ops, as Joe mentioned, we're giving you a platform, not just a tool, but a place to integrate all those disconnected technologies so that you can then automate the workflows, between them. But additionally, for security, what does the CISO care about? It's vulnerabilities, it's access. For that community, we are going to connect to your identity provider, to your Active Directory, your SAML, your Okta, whatever your identity provider is, map groups and roles, and give you a very fine-grained approach to locking those places down, like Joe just mentioned. We're also embedding a scanning engine to look for vulnerabilities on the software that you're running on all those machines. We even have an embedded secrets manager, so you can rotate your keys, make sure you're secure. So we're not a security platform, but we are going to embed security into everything we do, so it's not a separate silo. Third, for those developers who are trying to help the business move faster. You talk about digital transformation, that's all about doing software development to help grow your business, to differentiate versus your competitors. And that means moving fast. So letting developers do things on demand, programmatically, without having to change their patterns. Use the tools they like, just get IT out of the way while still having all the guardrails in place. And then lastly, for that finance user, once Morpheus is installed, we're going to connect to your hypervisors, your VMware, your Nutanix, your public cloud accounts, inventory everything that's there, and start giving you recommendations on how you can use that more effectively. Shut your ears, HP. You might not need to refresh hardware for another 3 months, because we're gonna right size your VMs and make.
I'm good with 3 months. That's good.
So maybe not 3 years, but how do you make sure your hybrid cloud's running efficiently and you're using your resources most effectively? So that's really a quick skim of the feature set and how we deliver things to these different types of users underneath the covers. We're going to jump next level down into the tech, and then we're going to run into a quick demo. To go kind of rapid fire style. But Joe, before I lean in, anything you'd add?
Well, I was just going to say that,
in the room, since the voice of the audience?
There was actually a really nice question in the room, and that is, can they use Morpheus data to migrate applications and workloads from one cloud resource to another? And yes, well, that provisioning engine can do that, and we typically tie that into Zerto, right? Being able to have our Zerto engine working again with Morpheus to make that very fluid and very easy. And we also give you another couple tools called Cloud Physics and others, but those are topics for another day that we can help you use to simulate what that load is going to look like, what that cost is going to look like moving from one cloud to another. But yes, the bottom line is that, again, Morpheus data is tied at the hip and integrated into enabling that functionality.
Yeah, what I'd probably add on, everyone's looking for the magic button that will break the laws of gravity and move data from point A to point B and all your applications, ingress and egress. Really, rather than think of Morpheus as a migration tool, our goal is to sit as an abstraction in front of your on-prem hypervisors, your public clouds, your Kubernetes clusters, so that you blueprint your application one time, and then you can re-platform it from Cloud A, Cloud B, Cloud C. And then, as Joe mentioned, you're still going to need a technology like a Zerto or some sort of data mover to actually move the data on the back end. But that's where, working with professional services team, the GMS team at HPE, we can certainly help you get to that outcome. So a little bit of a complex answer, but we're definitely part of that equation.
Yeah, and Brad, I think another critical element here is that we haven't mentioned is that one of the huge benefits is that we give you a cloud control plane that doesn't sit in the clouds, right? And actually sits on-prem at the prem of your choice, so that if you lose access to that cloud service provider or that cloud link, you're not losing access to all of your resources in whatever clouds they're in. And that's really important.
Yeah, it's good way to tee up this slide. So Morpheus is software. We're packaged software, standard Linux distribution. We can run on-prem, we can run in the public cloud, wherever you want it. To Joe's point, 70% of the workloads globally still run in the data center or out at the edge. We want you to run your control plane where it makes sense. And for most enterprises, that is on-prem. And then they can reach up into their public cloud accounts. We can fully manage that and give you that SaaS-like experience through partners like HPE. The GreenLake Managed Services Group can patch, update, maintain, monitor your SLA around your Morpheus stack. So that's all baked into the solution. So you get that SaaS feel, but still get the control and security of running it on-prem if you want. Very scalable, hundreds to tens of thousands of workloads. We've got probably close to 1 million workloads under management right now. Really, the secret sauce, though, is how we integrate into all those tools and clouds. We would love a chance to get in and do a POC. I'm going to tell you real quick kind of how we integrate those, and then we're going to flip over to a demo for just a few minutes to show you how it's real. So I mentioned that we're a platform. I use that word, often. Bugs me when I hear my guys call it a tool, because really it is a framework for you to integrate other technologies and automate the handoffs between those. What I've represented here really is the life cycle of what it takes to provision an application, right? If you need a clustered database, it's not just installing a server running MySQL, right? It's going to need an IP address. It's going to need to sit behind a load balancer. It's going to have a logging agent installed. It's going to need a backup installed. It's going to need all of those dependencies. And that's what takes time in IT. That's why it can take 2 or 3 weeks sometimes for IT to provision that workload. Well, with Morpheus, we've built abstractions that model that life cycle, but more importantly, we have built out-of-the-box integrations into the technologies that you guys and girls already have on your data center floor and or in the public cloud. So if you need us to authenticate that user in your identity manager and then call a Terraform script, grab an IP address from an info blocks, run an Ansible playbook, deploy an artifact, set up a backup job, a monitoring agent, configure a VIP in your F5. We're going to do that in 5 minutes, not 5 weeks, because we've built all that automation in. And that is what makes a private cloud work, is all of that end-to-end integration. And it's why, Morpheus won Best of VMworld a couple of months ago, been in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, leader in the Forrester Wave. This is hard stuff, but we have been doing this and only this for the last 5 or 6 years and are excited to help a lot of the customers.
Yeah, that's really a critical point, Brad, because, keeping up with all the latest automation tools, API integration, optimization, and best practices, that's really what you do, right? I mean, that's not really a core competency of HPE, right? We're delivering the bigger picture, the entire platform, and manufacturing some pretty good stuff at the same time.
Absolutely.
Which is why we like to rely on Morpheus. Thank you.
It's also some of our best customers we have today are ones that I talked to maybe 2 years ago. They said, hey, we want self-service, we want developer enablement, we've got platform engineering as a focus. we're going to send Bob to Ansible camp, and he is going to write a bunch of scripts to handle this. And they come back, 18 months later and say, wow, it was more than just Bob. It was a team of 20 people, and we sunk $10 million into a platform that is brittle, it's rigid, it's got thousands of scripts. It's just hard to maintain. That's where Morpheus comes in, right? We're a more sustainable way to get to that outcome without taking on all that technical debt as an enterprise or as a partner. The other piece that Joe hit on earlier is we're agnostic, not just a tool, but also underlying platform. We'd love it if 100% of the world's workloads ran on HPE. Most of them actually do. There's a mountain of workloads on HPE for sure, but could be bare metal, could be on VMware, could be Nutanix, Microsoft, and certainly the public cloud is very much, a dominant force today. It is in everything. The world is hybrid. You need a control plane that will help you navigate that without having to have a team of experts in 5 different clouds and the nuances of how they provision. That's just not scalable. You also can't govern it. You can't put policy around it. You can't manage costs centrally if you're doing everything as a snowflake.
No, and Brad, it's really important to understand that, even though we call it HPE GreenLake, over 60% of all of our HPE GreenLake private or hybrid cloud implementations actually are leveraging some type of third-party hardware within the solution. And so it's absolutely great. But let's see it, because I think seeing is believing. Yeah,
seeing is believing. That's what they said. All right. So I am in the Morpheus UI. I'm in the portal. So we've installed this. Morpheus installs, unpacks literally in 20 minutes, right? We're not going to do global, IT transformation in 20 minutes, but installing it and setting up pretty quick. We can also attach to all those integrations very, very quickly. When we run a POC, our engineers are pretty disappointed if they don't have a base level private cloud with the ability to hit a button and deploy a VM in an hour or two. So really, our goal is to be up and running pretty quick. I'm logged in as a power user. God knows why they gave me that much power. It's going to go to my head. I get a lot of knobs and dials. It can be a lot. But one of the things I mentioned earlier was that role-based access control, the ability to curate this view so that developer A from project A only sees what they need to see. Finance user sees what they need to see. So what I'm going to do is actually go into one of our sub-tenants. We are a multi-tenanted platform. So for larger organizations or service providers where you need to have a complete segregated tenant, we can do that. But even for this demo for a mainstream enterprise, I'm going to use tenancy to actually show that role-based access model at work. So I'm going to go into the Pied Piper tenant for those HBO fans out there. I mentioned one of the first things we do is we connect to an identity provider, right? We're going to connect into your identity provider of choice. If we're actually integrated with GreenLake, we're going to take a pass through from their GreenLake cloud platform. So we can pass your credentials directly in. And then we're going to map groups and roles, and that lets us start to lock things down in the way that you need. Now, I'm going to pretend I am Dinesh. Dinesh is a developer on the TV show. I'm going to impersonate him, and you're going to see a couple things. First, white labeling's applied, right? You can white label this, make it look like your corporate logo, but more importantly, he has a lot less noise, less knobs and dials. He doesn't have an infrastructure drop down. He can't go add a cloud or muck around in your VMware vCenter environment. You're not giving him the keys to vCenter. The reason you have a self-service platform is he doesn't need that kind of control. He needs to go provision things, right? He needs to go into a simple catalog or an API or run his pipeline and get his CentOS box, his Tomcat server, his multi-tier Pied Piper application deployed very quickly. So in this example, if I go in here, we've curated, or I'd say the Morpheus admin has curated these views. These are using the VMware image templates that you have, your Amazon AMIs, the different technologies you already have, but we're pulling them in and attaching governance and guardrails around. So I can hit on Apache, order this. This is a very simple, and this is the epitome of that easy button, right? What cost center are you in, Dinesh? You're in engineering? Great. In this example, we fully baked in what network, what policy, how much storage. This is one end of the spectrum, right? Very little to think about. But to compare, we may have a developer or an ops team who really does need to see a little bit of how the sausage is made. Maybe they don't want to go slaughter a cow, but if they want to be involved in the process, I'm going to go through that same example with our power user viewing, right? So same thing, Apache. I can do this either as a container or a VM. Now, Dinesh is a member of a group. Think about that could be a project team or a business unit. That's going to define what clouds he can provision into. Let's pick on VMware, very popular choice. Could have been AWS or Azure. Now, I've got a policy here that is going to apply a naming policy. So he can't name this after his cat or his favorite sushi restaurant, right? It's going to follow corporate standards. We've got a lot of variables that you can use to kind of lock that in. Pick an environment. Again, this is tagging, so this is all going to go back into the chargeback model. Hit next. All right. I said this could be a container or a VM. We've got those images under the covers to apply. If there's a container, I'd be seeing what namespaces does he have access into. But I'm going to pick the Apache image. You can see this form changing as I go. So it's not just serving up a least common denominator set of 5 inputs. It's actually dynamically changing based on what cloud I'm provisioning into. If this was public cloud, I'd be seeing cloud native things like provisioned IOPS from AWS as an example, or other cloud native metrics. I get my t-shirt sizes, what cost, how much memory, how much CPU. I'm an old storage guy. How much storage?
Yeah, and by the way, Brad, they can customize these, right? It can be 1 CPU, 2 CPU, 4 CPUs, whatever.
Yeah, even down to that custom plan. Yeah, you can really tailor this to your heart's content. Even add things like software overhead, power and cooling. What are all the other things you need to know? Sustainability, very hot topic of late. So if you want to track power usage and charge for that and pull that into your chargeback model, these are all things that we do out of the box. What resource pool or folder, what storage volumes, again, all laid out here. One of the ones that's kind of pretty important here is on the networking side. I mean, you talk to a lot of customers, you've been out in the field, and just waiting for the networking team to go get you an IP address can sometimes be a 2 or 3 day ticketing wait.
That's right.
Right. In this case, we're just going to grab that from a pool because we've integrated this into an IPAM tool like a Blue Cat or an Infoblox or a SolarWinds. I'm going to skip past some of the other advanced options, but all of the things that IT usually needs to do manually, we've pulled into one workflow, answer a few questions, and away you go. I know I probably forgot something. Oh, I didn't. Magic.
Well, we can say that it also updates the configuration management database, right? Whatever that is. A lot of people use ServiceNow, right? That integration's already been done for you. So the trouble ticket's already opened and closed, right? And documented that device has been provisioned. Yeah.
No, good one. And I don't know if that was a question that came in from the side. That is something that comes up almost every time I'm talking.
It was a question that came into here. Yeah. And
I just came into here. ServiceNow, I would say, is in probably 60% of our large enterprises. I mean, it really shows up all the time, but we've seen customers mature quite a lot over the last couple of years. 5 years ago, many enterprises wanted ServiceNow to be the front door for everybody, for everything, the single source of truth, right? That's ITIL and ITSM at its heart. One of the patterns that we're seeing today from platform engineering teams is you've got certain project teams that for sure still need to go through ServiceNow, the business unit, the marketing team. You don't want them, they're not going to be running infrastructure as code. ServiceNow is their front door. You've got other groups though that are going to need to spin up things programmatically, spin them up, tear them down, run their tests. They don't have time to go through a heavy ServiceNow front end, but to your point, they still need a CMDB CI record updated on the back end. So that is the type of integration we have with ServiceNow. So however you need to feed that beast, whether it's through the ServiceNow catalog or programmatically on the back end, or even integrating with their approvals and workflows, very, very deep sets of integrations with ServiceNow. All these other, that wheel slide I had earlier, right? All those different points of light around that wheel is what you're seeing represented here. Do I need to deploy an artifact? Do I need to provision a VIP behind my load balancer? Do I need to set up an elastic scaling engine so that I can add a new VM or a new compute node? Do I need to set up a backup job in a Veeam or a Rubrik or a replication job in a Zerto, to Joe's point? All of these are in play, as well as lifecycle policy. In this case, policy engine. We're going to shut down in a day, turn this thing off in another day so that I don't run away with our VMware environment. All right, we baked that in, hit complete. This is provision, right? That's kind of that public cloud experience, but we've just done it, in the on-prem data center in the Morpheus lab. I'm going to pause.
So
I've been
so it looks
talking a
and
blue
feels.
screen.
Yeah, no, it's good, great. So the nice thing, Brad, that I think that you really demonstrated well for everybody out here in the audience is that this is very easy to do. It's just like, if not easier than provisioning up in the public cloud, because in the public cloud, you don't get some of the choices and the options, right? In this private hybrid cloud opportunity or GreenLake instance that leverages Morpheus, we're giving you the opportunity to define what that infrastructure looks like, right? What is that platform? How much security do you want to be built into the hardware, and then the added security elements that Brad talked about that are also integrated into the cloud control plane, right? You have to have security integrated all throughout. You don't always get those choices, right? And then when it comes to compliance, right, having visibility to your compliance across all of your public clouds, as well as your private cloud and your private data center infrastructure, that's an option. It doesn't come necessarily built in. We'll give you visibility to all your multiple cloud resources, but control of those multiple cloud resources actually costs a little extra, but again, it can be done, right? And it's easy for us to turn that on. And then obviously the visibility into the compliance of all that, again, is an extra charge, but it's easily turned on. And then at the push of a button, you get the ability to have a full detailed compliance report looking at all of the NIST and CSA security requirements, which are, by the way, the larger form of, say, HIPAA, PCI, CMMC, FIPS, and all of those are subsets of the other two. We give you visibility to all of those across your entire cloud estate. And that's huge.
Yeah, very deep set of tooling that HPE wraps around the Morpheus platform in a lot of different areas.
Now, Brad, we had a couple questions come in, and I see we have a few minutes left here.
One
of
the
questions wanted to know, how do we license Morpheus data, and how does that work within HPE GreenLake?
Sure. Happy to talk to that. So we think about the world in terms of workloads, right? I mean, for all that we love servers and storage and networks, at the end of the day, they're there to support some sort of application that is powering your business. So how many application workloads is Morpheus attached to across all of your clouds? It could be 500 on VMware, 200 on AWS, another 100 on Azure. We don't care how many clouds, just how many workloads in total is Morpheus wrapping its arms around. That's a sliding tiered model. So obviously, the more workloads, the longer the term length, it's going to be a sliding scale. And we work very closely with HPE to take that baseline and then apply it to that GreenLake model. And that's why I love this partnership. They're able to take the Morpheus license, the management of the software, the underpinning hardware, and give you that truly elastic monthly OpEx-based bill for your compute, storage, and network infrastructure, your hypervisor, Morpheus itself, all wrapped up in a tidy little bow with professional services and management around it. So that's the short answer. Maybe not that short. I can pontificate. What other questions you got?
Well, one of the other great questions that I love that I'm just finishing responding to is, what is GreenLake?
There you go.
So obviously we didn't do a good enough job kind of covering that at the high level. So let me just spell it out. And I did kind of answer it here in the Q&A box, but for everybody else, HPE GreenLake is HPE's private cloud offering, and it delivers a platform for everything as a service, whether that's infrastructure as a service, bare metal as a service, or anything else. We call it the cloud that comes to you, because it certainly is a native hybrid cloud solution that can run in either your data center or the colo of your choice. If you're trying to get out of the business of data centers, we want to help you do that. If you're worried about GDPR data and where your customers' data or where your client data is residing, right? And you're worried about which instance of the cloud it might be in. If you're a Canadian resident, the Canadian residential data has to, by law, stay within the geographic borders of Canada. And now California has placed a similar GDPR regulation on the books. Europe has been doing that for years, Latin America for years. So we now have the ability to help you co-locate or locate that data geographically, adjacent to or within the boundaries required by implementing a private cloud, and giving you visibility to all of your other clouds wherever they may be, and bringing it all together and automating it all as one with a provisioning portal or self-service provisioning portal. And that is powered by Morpheus data. So hopefully that answers the question, Brad.
No, good. Yeah, sorry, we skimmed past that. Looking externally, and I work with a lot of different partners, software, hardware, others. I think HP has done a great job of reinventing kind of the infrastructure landscape over the last 3 or 4 years, and turning every product in the suite into some sort of as a service consumable offer with the right services and software on top. And that's kind of GreenLake in totality. And then specifically GreenLake hybrid and private cloud is absolutely down the middle of what we're talking about today. So
right, and the ability
to
also
HP.
to also for those customers that may have Morpheus already and they want to integrate GreenLake, or they want to integrate the Morpheus instance into the GreenLake instance, we have the ability to do that. And the same thing goes for ServiceNow instances that can be integrated. Now they can either be federated or integrated to use the same singular ServiceNow instance. You have the choice there. But the bottom line is that, yes, they absolutely work together and can work together as one.
Perfect. Well, I could demo Morpheus for hours, right? There are a lot of knobs and dials. I gave you that self-service experience overview. There's reporting, there's analytics, there's the guidance I mentioned to help you right-size your instances, right? We've embedded that right-sizing intelligence in here to just click a button and save $80 a month by resizing your VM. So there's just a mountain of technology and feature set in here. Hopefully we've given you enough of an overview to give you a little bit of taste without the, didn't have to jump on a sales call, didn't have to be scary, but if you do have some interest, if this seems like something that you're trying to solve, that, move faster with alacrity in a private and hybrid cloud environment, I'm pretty sure there is something in the HPE Morpheus partnership that can be applied to that problem domain. We would love to talk. We've got operators standing by. No, not really, but we do have email addresses and aliases. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you and give you a personalized full demo. Talk a little bit about your specific technologies, the problems that you're trying to solve. One of the things that HP has done a great job of is they've actually housed a lot of the GreenLake solutions in a publicly accessible test drive environment. So you can actually register for free, go click the buttons, go deploy VMs, go look at some of the other solutions, even outside of private and hybrid cloud that are under the GreenLake umbrella. Search for GreenLake test drive. Joe, I don't know if you could put that in the chat. It was a very long URL, so I didn't carry it over here. But
it's actually already in the Q&A. Yep.
There you go. Look at you ahead of me as usual. And then again, we'd love to do an on-prem POC. That the best way to get a handle on this is to run it in your data center and see how it plays. So give us a shout. We've got email contact here. We've got the web address. With that, I think we said we'd get you out of here a little bit early. Hit it around 45 minutes. Won't take up the full hour, but I appreciate Joe for one being on here, helping co-pilot this with me.
Absolutely.
You got
Thanks,
any
Brad.
kind of closing comments on food for
Yeah,
thought?
absolutely. I just want to make sure that we clarify that, yes, obviously HP GreenLake is so much more than just a leasing model, which someone mentioned in the Q&A. It is literally the private cloud that comes to you and scales up and scales down as your business does in a pay-per-use model, right? So that's the key thing. The other key thing is that Morpheus data and HP together really bring you more value together than they do individually, because we're giving you on day one a solution that can be stood up within your data center or a colo of your choice and give you a fully functioning multi-hybrid cloud or hybrid multi-cloud environment starting on day one, basically from the time it's plugged in. And I don't think you can do that anywhere else from anyone else. Certainly not something that's also supports third-party gear, not just something that's holistically from one manufacturer. And I think that's huge.
I totally agree. It's a great partnership, and we are excited to help all the customers out there, and appreciate everybody dialing in. As mentioned at the beginning, we will be following up and letting you know who got those golden tickets. Gonna look a little bit like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We'll see who got the
That's right, yeah.
who got the football tickets. And yeah, congratulations for whoever that is in advance. Keep an eye out for an email from us. So here over the next day or two, we'll get you that and work out the details. So
yeah, thanks for
have a good
connecting
rest
in,
of your
folks.
week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.